Oh god, I'm done. I'm done with book 2. I'm done. My mind is spinning. Jinning stabbed him. Everybody found out. He's on Danwang. She's back. He's remembering stuff. What is happening? Okay, deep breaths. Let's talk about what happened in chapter 10. Whoa. How about we work our way from Jin Guangyao to Wei Wuxian to general politics and then over to Lan Wangji, because what is going on with that man? So in Jin Guangyao, we have a character who again has been failed by the system that is in place here, right? We have another person who suffers the consequences of being born into the wrong circumstances to the wrong people, and whose talents and whose work will never be fully acknowledged because of his heritage. It's interesting because this is the third character that we meet in these books that has that fate. And we've, gone on deep dives into Wei Wuxian, we've gone on deep dives into Shuo Yang, and now we're going into a deep dive into Jin Guangyao. And he is different again, like he approaches this and deals with this in a different way again. And to me, okay, might be controversial. To me, it's the most sinister of the approaches because he gets away with being a good guy for the longest time. And the closer you look, the more it seems like he has understood the game that is being played here. And he has mostly understood how to exploit the rules of the game for his own benefit. And a part of me thinks he's right in doing that. I'm always a proponent for using loopholes in an unfair system, in a system that is rigged against you. Where Jin Guangyao goes wrong, in my opinion, is that he starts to not exploit the system, but rather exploit the people and the innocent, loyal, honorable people who are working within the confines of that system. He understands, for example, that Lan Shichen and Ni Mingyue will just, act according to honorable principles. They are righteous people. They are loyal people. They will not just break the law or break their rules for anybody. They will stick to rules, and that's reliable, and that reliability can be exploited. And he does so. He also knows how to, stage a murder to make it look like another clan did it, or how to, use the very frequent offing of yourself in order to get out of sticky situation. The thing that unites him with Shu Yang is that he also thinks that his life has more worth and value than other people's lives, and that he walks around believing that and acting upon that. He shows very clearly why a lot of the ways things are done in this world do not work and are very easily exploitable and unfair. And you know who also realizes that? The difference between the two of them, of course, is that Wei Wuxian just says he's not sitting down to play at that table. He doesn't want to play the game. He excuses himself from it and points at the game and throws it on its head and says, this game is ridiculous because it's unfair. Jin Guangyao, on the other hand, says, well, I can rig the game, so I will play it. To me, between the two of them, there is one honest approach, and it's Wei Wuxian's. So while they have both understood that the system doesn't work, Wei Wuxian values morality over power, while Jin Guangyao obviously values power over morality. I also found it so fascinating how this chapter brought up the whole do the ends justify the means discussion, and that Jin Guangyao definitely says yes they do, and then the question is, who decides which ends justify which means and what ends are the right ones? In that sense, yeah, Jin Guangyao thinks he is the moral authority on making that decision on what ends justify which means. But you know who also thinks that way? Wei Wuxian does. Yeah, he also thinks that he has it all figured out. So much to think about. I'm sure I will have like 10 more thoughts on this the moment my head hits the pillow tonight, but let's move on. Because this chapter didn't just have politics. It had a lot of politics, yeah. But it also made me realize how deeply invested I am in Wei Wuxian as a character and in his tragic trajectory in life so far. So far, we've only seen glimpses of what his life was like before he died, but in this chapter, he actually gets to look at himself when he was younger, and he gets to reflect on how he was behaving and how he was carrying himself, and that he does not approve of how he carried himself back then, which is understandable. If I met myself at the age of 21, I would probably also want to slap myself. But I think for Wei Wuxian, particularly because he knows that it turned out badly for him, I think he reflects on that a little bit differently. And you can tell that although his values haven't changed, right? Like he still believes the same things that he believed back then, but his approach to life and how he carries himself has definitely changed. And he sees his own role in the world as a different one than when he was younger. But in this second book, his previous life, the first life he led, almost feels like a ghost haunting him, right? Left, right, and center, he's confronted with people who have met him before and who talk about him in front of him, who refer to him as this evil, this pure evil that he never was and that he never wanted to be. But now that he saw himself and was confronted with himself, I think he got to see a glimpse of why people found him off-putting or why people were afraid of him. And you can just tell that he's an extremely scarred individual. The scars that his previous life left on him are visible and palpable, and they are most obvious when he doubts that anybody ever loved him, anybody ever cared for him, anybody remembers him for anything positive at all. And in that sense, he has become less arrogant in his second life, but also a little more guarded. And last video I joked about, oh, he doesn't realize that he's in love. Yeah, of course he doesn't realize it. He doesn't allow himself to feel that way. He doesn't allow himself to experience those emotions, although at the end of this chapter, of chapter 10, they are so obviously there and so strong inside of him. And honestly, I think part of that is just self-preservation. The longer he holds on to the thought that he himself doesn't have feelings, and the longer he holds on to the belief that Lan Wangji probably doesn't care about him, the longer he can pretend that he's just this lone wolf who is destined to live in isolation for the rest of his exiled life. But to be loved is to be changed. And oh my God, Lan Wangji has changed. The changes are so subtle, okay? He's still quiet, he's still silent, he still wears the same funeral garbs, he still, doesn't say more than 2 words, but oh my God, he has changed so much. Every time there's a flashback, I'm like, who is this guy? Why is he so standoffish? And why is he now so warm towards Wei Wuxian? What happened between them? I am missing this big puzzle piece between them. I'm missing what happened between those two after they were, youngins, and now. I do believe that Lan Wangji has always seen Wei Wuxian as a person. And I think he has always understood that he doesn't want to be evil, but that he just sees that the system isn't right and that something needs to be done with that. But when did he fall in love? When did he tell himself, no, actually, I'm going to commit my life to protecting this man? To the point where it almost feels unconditional. It almost feels like unspoken, complete loyalty, like a pact, like they swore an oath or something. Like they're already married. Anyway, that was book 2. So good. I will think about so many aspects of this for very long. But until then,